Yes, we're online. Yeah, we're starting.
You can flip it around, she can give a welcome.
Thank you very much for your patience and for waiting on this wonderful afternoon. I hope you had a wonderful lunch, inspiring sessions so far, good discussions. Welcome to this session on Transboundary Aquifer Cooperation for Climate Resilience in Africa. My name is Benjamin Kirsch. I'm a water specialist with the FAO Land and Water Division, and I have the pleasure to conduct this session as a moderator. The session objectives. We want to highlight the role of shared aquifers in advancing water resources resilience in Africa in this session. We will introduce a new GEF project centered on groundwater in Africa, very exciting new initiative, and share experiences from different shared aquifer projects around the globe to learn lessons relevant to advancing transboundary groundwater management in Africa. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor. First I will go run you through the project, the program. We'll hear a welcome of Rachid Mbariza from AMCOW, then Virginie Gillet from FAO will talk about the water portfolio, the FAO GEF International Waters portfolio. Afterwards, we have a presentation on transboundary groundwater in Africa, potential and risks by Barbara Willards and Gema Ibrahim. And then Jonathan Lautze from IMI will present the new GEF project. And in the second part of this session, we will have a panel discussion with 4 distinguished panelists. And then we will have a summing up by Astrid Hillers from GEF at the end of this session. Now, you see it's a very intense program that awaits you over the next hour and a half. If you have any questions or comments, I would encourage you to write them down so you don't forget about them. And we will come to that after the first block of presentations, or you will also be able to address them during the panel discussion. So without further ado, let me introduce Dr. Rachid Mbariza, the Executive Secretary of the African Ministers' Council on Water, AMCOW, to give us a welcome. Sorry, Rachid.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here to address you at the launch of this Groundwater for Development project, and also to talk about groundwater within the context of the work that AMCOW is engaged in. The population in Africa is expected to reach about 1.6 billion people by 2030. At the very minimum, food production will have to increase by about 50% to feed that population. And if we look at it, taking this a step further, we'll be looking at a tenfold increase in water needs for energy production in order to achieve the goals of the African Union Agenda 2063, to modernize our economies and drive social progress. Even at present, with less than 2 years to the final milestone of the Africa Water Vision 2025, information from the Africa Water and Sanitation Sector Monitoring System indicates that most member states are off track to achieve the targets of the Africa Water Vision 2025. To address this and face the adverse impacts of climate change, improvements in the management of our water resources is critical. At AMCOW, our work is guided by the Africa Water Vision of an Africa where there is equitable and sustainable use of our water resources for socioeconomic development, poverty alleviation, regional cooperation, and the environment. In as far as this relates to groundwater, the AMCOW Strategic Groundwater Program is aimed at strengthening water security, and is also designed to enhance groundwater management across Africa with the understanding that the resource is crucial in meeting domestic, agriculture, and industry water needs. In the framework of the Africa Water Resources Priority Action Plan, which provides a comprehensive set of interventions in managing our water resources, there is a specific area of focus on addressing the challenges of groundwater scarcity, pollution, and over-extraction by improving data collection, strengthening institutional and human capacity, and promoting sustainable use and management, and also the development of effective policies that provide an enabling environment for improving how that resource is managed and utilized. By tackling specific groundwater issues, the Strategic Groundwater Program creates a comprehensive approach to water resources management. Sustainable groundwater use must ensure that this vital resource can support economic growth and community needs without compromising future availability. This requires implementation of effective policies and regulations to manage water resources in a way that balances immediate needs with long-term conservation. This Groundwater for Advancing Climate Resilience project is therefore a key contribution to these efforts. To address the challenges already highlighted, lasting solutions in Africa's efforts to eradicate poverty and eliminate hunger must tackle the governance and institutional capacity constraints that underlie water insecurity. Recognizing groundwater's role in building resilience to the impacts of climate change is paramount. A key priority is therefore to develop and operationalize delivery mechanisms at scale required to assure water, food, and energy security for the people of Africa. Focus must be placed on aligning the water cooperation agenda of member states, river and lake basin organizations, regional economic communities, and related partner institutions with prevailing regional and continental policy objectives, particularly those that concern socioeconomic development, peace and security, and as well as regional integration. For groundwater management, strengthening the mechanisms required at local level to improve conjunctive water management and promote cooperation in managing transboundary aquifers is a key area of intervention. Secondly, we need to attract investments to the water sector that are commensurate with the vitality of water to the development agenda of Africa. This includes improving the investment outlook for water infrastructure development, as well as improving water governance and management capacities at all levels. A key priority will be to raise the profile and value attached to water in national systems for economic planning and development. Applying the principles of valuing water holds promise for highlighting the vitality of water security and sustainable sanitation to Africa's agenda for economic growth and social transformation. In turn, a compelling business case can be made for adequate financing, thus improving the investment outlook for the sector. A key requirement will be to strengthen member states' capacities to generate and apply information and knowledge to support science-based decision-making. Information management systems that support processes to articulate the water and sanitation economy to benefit business and society in Africa will be key to achieving sustainable solutions. Efforts are currently underway to formulate the post-2025 Africa Water Vision and policy that will respond to these challenges and provide a strategic framework towards inclusive and climate-resilient water security on the continent. Groundwater must be central to this endeavor. Ultimately, the vision and policy must motivate action to achieve the African Union Agenda 2063 goal of environmentally sustainable and climate-resilient economies and communities through assuring water security, among others. Strengthening water security is essential to the realization of the goals of the African Water Vision. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rashid. It's very inspiring and very good to know that this project and this initiatives counts with the political support of AMCOW, which is, of course, very key in achieving a successful transboundary governance. Without further ado, I would like to now give the floor to Virginie Gillet. Virginie is Land and Water Officer with the Land and Water Development Division in FAO Rome. She's joining us from FAO, and she will give us an overview of the FAO GEF portfolio in international waters. Virginie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Benjamin, and good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for not being with you this afternoon, but I'm very happy to be able to participate to this session online and to learn with you about this, more about this project and to really start to see it implementing. So I've been asked, as Benjamin said, to provide a bit of context here on the FAO and GEF collaboration, from which stems this project on groundwater for advancing resilience in Africa. And that will be presented later on by Barbara and Jonathan. But first, I wanted to thank IMI, the International Water Management Institute, for organizing this session, as the 4-year project is now starting, and it's a good time to regroup all energy for its implementation and focus with all stakeholders involved. In particular, we've just already seen the African Minister Council on Water, AMCO, but also the International Institute for Applied System Analysis, YASA, and obviously the Groundwater Management Institute of SADC, also participating in this session today. So FAO and GEF are partnering for sustainable agri-food system and the environment. And FAO Global GEF portfolio includes almost 300 projects, and that were mainly endorsed, the current one and the GEF 7 and GEF 8, and they assist over 120 countries to respond to local priority, deliver global environmental benefits, and advance on the SDG. In GEF 8, the main focal area FAO is working on are biodiversity, climate change, land degradation, and international waters. And 43 of the GEF projects that FAO is currently working on are in this last focal area of international water. But there are also cross-cutting themes which are highly relevant in the management of water resource and for us in the Land and Water Division of FAO. For example, circular economy, nature-based solution, transboundary and freshwater environmental security, and gender approaches, among others. Most of the projects on international water are in Asia-Pacific region and at global level. But today, the project that we will be presenting is one of the 3 interregional projects undertaken under this international water focal area. More generally, under the priority under this GEF project, as you will learn, align very well with the FAO water priority. And that includes, for example, the national planning and transboundary governance, national and regional planning and investment with groundwater being critical for climate resilience. And this project on transboundary groundwater fits into our larger strategy for more resilient food, water resilient food systems. A second priority of FAO Land and Water Division is also data and innovation. And with this project, we will see evidence-based policymaking from data collection on natural resource, but in particular here on water and groundwater, which is a mandate of FAO. Another important component of this project and fitting very well with FAO priority on water is capacity development, with the aim to get the local expertise, the expertise locally available. And in that project, we are very happy to have AMCO already so heavily involved in this session. Because we're really hoping that the sustainability of the project will be maintained with increased expertise of AMCO on the management of transboundary aquifer. And the final point, which is both in the project, as you will see, and within FAO water priority, is the gender and youth inclusion. So I will stop here and use these few components of the project as a teaser for you to stay and learn more about it, and we'll give the floor back to Benjamin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Virginie, for this concise overview of the GEF portfolio. The next speakers are Barbara Willets and Gema Ebrahim, who will give you an introduction on transboundary groundwater in Africa, potential and risks. Barbara is a research scholar and scientific project manager at the International Institute of Applied Systems Analysis based in Austria. And Gema Ebrahim is a researcher in hydrogeology and water resources at the International Water Management Institute, IMI, based in Ethiopia. Barbara, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Good afternoon, everyone. My pleasure to be here. And I will be, as Benjamin saying, with my colleague Girma, who is there behind the scenes, try to give you a high-level overview about the knowledge base on groundwater in Africa, and particularly with regards to transboundary groundwaters. I hope that this presentation also helps framing a bit more the panel discussion that will follow, and actually also justifies a bit the need for this project. So some key facts about groundwater in Africa. So first of all, I mean, if we look at the global picture, and it helps us to see how Africa plays against other countries or other continents of the world, Africa holds approximately 13% of the total groundwater renewable stock. And we often hear Africa is groundwater rich. Well, in comparison to other regions, not, but very importantly, it has huge potential. And it has huge potential because less than 3% at the continental level is actually being, the rate of extraction is less than 3%. Of course, there is important differences across the regions. Northern Africa has a total different situation with respect to sub-Saharan Africa, but the focus of our project is sub-Saharan Africa, and as you can see, there is huge potential. But another important thing to take into account when we think about this groundwater development is that a lot of these waters are also stored in deep aquifers, which poses some challenges to its exploitation because it comes with higher cost. And particularly because the majority of the groundwater use in Africa is actually used in rural environments and mostly for drinking water purposes and smallholder farmers. That poses a challenge when it comes to how to exploit this resource sustainably and in an affordable way. Nevertheless, groundwater, as we all know, it's a critical resource, and particularly in the dryland regions, because in the medium to long term is probably going to be the only reliable source of water. While groundwater plays a key role in supplying drinking water in rural areas, groundwater in urban areas of Africa is only now developing. It's actually only few major cities across Africa that use groundwater as a reliable, as a permanent source of water. So, I mean, with this high-level picture about groundwater in Africa, if we focus on the specificities of groundwater, the latest information that we have from IGRAC is that so far 106 transboundary aquifers have been mapped, which cover almost half of the entire continental territory, and they host 33% of the population human living in the continent. The important thing is that less than 15 actually have been, less of all the development projects around groundwater, actually less than 15 actually have this transboundary groundwater development approach. And when it comes to the legal framework, less than 5 are included in actual agreements. And an important thing as well is that the majority of these treaties actually focus on data exchange and scientific research or collaboration, whereas actual management is barely considered in the majority of these agreements. Here we can see the latest information that we have, the reporting from SDG 652, which actually showcase that there is very few areas. I mean, the area of groundwater, transboundary groundwaters, which are covered by a legal agreement is actually, which is operational, is quite low. But yeah, this is the situation now, but probably if we look into the future, the challenges are going to be higher, and are going to be higher because we are already getting scientific knowledge and saying that actually the latest assessment report indicates that Africa is the continent that is going to warming up more rapidly across the world, and importantly as well is one of the continents in the world that is going to experience a higher increase in the frequency of extreme events. So in all this context, we can of course understand the importance that groundwater will play to build resilience. And as it was said in the introductory words by Executive Secretary of AMCA, we often talk about climate change, but we should not forget that actually one of the major transformation drivers and pressures in the continent will be also population growth, and particularly the rapid urbanization, which will concentrate the demands for water heavily in space, and solutions will need to be figured out to meet these demands. So all in all, if we summarize a bit some of the risks and challenges that transboundary aquifers in Africa experience, on the technical side, there is still limited knowledge. I mean, there is significant efforts, and they continue to map transboundary aquifers and characterize them. But it's also very limited, the information that we have on the quantity, and importantly on the quality, which is not just deteriorating because of anthropogenic sources, but it's also naturally a phenomenon that it's occurring. And on the governance, and of course based on the limited knowledge that we have from the technical side, is planning and management frameworks are still barely considering groundwater. And of course, as we were saying as well, there is insufficient legal basis, which makes, of course, any kind of planning difficult, but moreover limits the cooperation across countries. All these governance challenges need to be contextualized in conditions which are rapidly changing, as we were saying. Climate change will pose, and it's posing already, a major threat. And this will come along with population growth, which will, of course, increase the risk of overexploitation and water pollution. So I will pass it on. I gave this very high-level picture, and what we wanted to do in this session as well, in this presentation, is provide some examples and lessons learned about actual work that IMI has been doing in Africa. And then I will pass the floor to my colleague Girma. I saw him before. I don't know. Yes, there you are, Girma. So over to you, Girma.
Thank you very much, Barbara. That's really nice framing, and I think I wish you should have finished everything, but just to start and give you a highlight of what IMI is doing in regard to the transboundary aquifer. Barbara highlighted the importance of knowledge generation in terms of transboundary aquifer characterization, especially if you just see from 2015, the number of transboundary aquifer were like 72. Now it's in 2021, 2022, it's grown up to 100 something. So that shows that knowledge generation is very important to characterize and know to harness the benefit of the transboundary aquifer. So one way of enhancing transboundary aquifer is using using managed aquifer recharge. Africa has a long history of using managed aquifer recharge. It's over 13 years of MAR is already present in Africa, but in the past we did some kind of assessment, MAR application in Africa about 5 or 6 years ago. Then we saw like few countries are using MAR, like maybe we found around 52 case studies, but from those case studies we found very valuable information that really can be good example for the world, even more than 13 years of experience. So to supplement or to use as a baseline to identify where the potential of MAR can be implemented, we use the GIS multi-criteria decision analysis, and we do like continental level MAR assessment. So this is a baseline where we can combine intrinsic aquifer suitability, water source, and also water demand. So we use different criteria, then we aggregated that into one suitability map. So this map shows like more than 73% has moderate to high, moderate feasibility for MAR application, like MAR application using a spreading method. We have different applications like injection and others, but here we saw only the spreading method. So, and also 7% falls into the high feasibility category. So this shows that MAR has a potential to increase groundwater. In our review also, we found like more around 6 out of 52 case studies were in the transboundary aquifer. So the value of enhancing this transboundary aquifer becoming more and more important. Next slide, please. So in this slide, I will just share you the transboundary aquifer IMI.
Sorry, you have 2 minutes left, please. 2 minutes.
Okay, so we have covered around 4 transboundary aquifer, the Kazat, the Ramoswa, Kazat FC, and Shire system, as well as Turikaru. The level of details that we is differ from case study to case study. In some, mostly we did transport diagnostic assessment, that is gathering information, analyzing, and identifying key issues, transboundary issues. In some areas, we go far out to modeling. Also geophysical assessment in case of Ramoswa. We also did co-design of monitoring network for Tulikaru and also piloting some monitoring system there. So next slide. So this is this figure shows you the different challenge issues we identified. In most cases, we've identified data gaps, one issue, lack of monitoring, climate change impact, inefficiency water use, lack of governance, institutional capabilities, also lack of infrastructure. So those are the 4 categories are classified in different. The what's cross-cutting is lack of data is common problem in transboundary aquifer. Lack of monitoring for the Tulikaru, that's only where we designed and implemented, but still there is data gaps that we can fill with monitoring. Unless we monitor, we can't know the resource availability, also the impact of climate change land use on the water resources. So next slide, please. So summing up, groundwater is gaining attention, and several continental, regional, and national initiatives have been established. For example, SADC GMI is covering a lot of doing a lot of transboundary issues. So we work in partner with SADC GMI in the Tulikaru, in the Shire, and also SADC GMI is also working in the Kaza, in one of the transboundary aquifer. So they are making a lot of effort. IGAD is also have some transboundary effort which is going on in the Eastern Africa region, and also groundwater function in AMCAO is now coming in board to take this into action. In Africa, as Barbara said, there's abundant untapped resources to boost socio-economic development and reduce poverty, but requires strong investment because in most cases, aquifers are not high mapped, so we don't know much information. We don't have much information. The heterogeneity of the aquifer is not as easy as surface water hydrology, so we need more investment to tap in these resources. Lack of capacity on groundwater is one of the issue in Africa. So we need to capacitate the others in this area to take up the resource, to be able to quantify, assess the resources. And harnessing the potential of groundwater in Africa should be informed by knowledge. That is key. That's why we're doing transboundary diagnostic assessment, modeling effort, manage the aquifer recharge scenario, as well as geophysics to understand the subsurface. So I think we need to have a knowledge base, knowledge generation. What IMI is doing is generating knowledge in transboundary aquifer so that the member countries understand the resource and also negotiate or collaborate on the resource uses, sustainable use of the resource. Rising awareness and institutional capacity are key to advancing groundwater opportunity. The knowledge that we have about groundwater is really far less than what we know about surface water, because in most cases resources are not measured and people that don't know or seeing is believing. So that's the reason. So I think we need to raise awareness of and also capacity institutions in terms of groundwater management, also groundwater assessment. So I think because of limited time, I didn't go in detail. So I think in nutshell, this is what we opt for this presentation. Thank you very much. Over to you, Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Barbara and Girma, for this excellent overview, which sets the stage for the next presentation. Before we go on, I would like to remind you to please take note of your questions and comments so they can be addressed later on in this session. We will now go to Jonathan Lautze, who will present the new project, the G4DR project. And Jonathan is a research group leader at the International Water Management Institute in South Africa. Jonathan, you have the floor.
Thanks, Benjamin. And I just want to give a thanks to all the preceding speakers. We've heard some great presentation and points made so far. Just to take a quick step back to just remind us what we've heard. I think the ES from AMCAO really highlighted how this forthcoming project will fit nicely into Africa's Agenda 2063 and the pathway forward. Virginie from FAO framed it in an FAO context, which is great. And then Barbara and Girma reviewed some of the opportunities and risks in Africa, which really helped motivate this project. If I'm to pick up some key threads, just very brief, from some of those preceding presentations and what we need to do to foster more focus on groundwater in Africa. I think there was a point, I think, around raising awareness, raising knowledge, but then also to tap this potential. I think Guillermo's, one of his final points, which was quite good, was to not just tap it wildly. It looks like there's abundant potential, but we need to do this in an informed, integrated way. And I think those sort of tenets inform the design of this project and our thinking going forward. And there's been a lot of talk so far on this project. So what is this project? You heard him say G4DR in Africa. What does that stand for? Groundwater for Advancing Resilience in Africa. I still have the old name in my head. That's this new project, and you heard Virginie from FAO reference the fact that it's getting going now. His background, it was actually endorsed by Jeff in December of 2023. So it's actually some months ago now. That's around 8 months ago, but there's been a sort of contracting process that's dragged a bit, but we're hoping really by next week, things will be finalized and then we'll get going. So let me dive in there onto this project. And again, just recapping quickly this motivation, which has already been covered in detail by my colleague Barbara from IASA and then Girma, who's with me at IMI. There's growing consensus around that there's this potential for more development of groundwater in Africa. I think Barbara put together a table that was a little bit more elaborate than the one I have on the right side of my screen, but that just shows the percentage of abstraction relative to the renewable water resources in the different regions of Africa. Those numbers are probably not perfect. Those are from Aquastat, which is great. No doubt there might be some imperfections in there, but the broader message is clear. there's only a small fraction of Africa's groundwater resources that are abstracted. And clearly there's regional variation. In North Africa, it's heavily abstracted, as you can see by that 179 number. But in the rest of Africa, relatively minimal, which leads to a lot of potential. And what can we use this potential for? That comes back to some of the points raised by the Executive Secretary of AMCAL before. This can be used as a tool to help the region's sustainable development agenda. It can help expand domestic water supplies, which need to be expanded to satisfy needs in a lot of rural communities. It can help contribute to resilience. It can help food security. And then equally, in the spirit of this event that we're at now, I mean, you heard Barbara refer to the abundance of transboundary aquifers. The growing focus on transboundary aquifers can actually lead to benefits even beyond those the immediate ones there related to water management, but broader peace and other things. So there's a range of benefits that can be mined from focusing on groundwater Africa and then transboundary aquifers specifically. Background, moving into the objectives, here they are. Overarching objective of this project, G4DR in Africa, is basically to enhance water security and resilience in Africa by unlocking the potential of sustainable groundwater development and protection. It's funny, as I was putting this presentation together in the last couple of days, it occurred to me there was a little something that got lost in the current objective, and then I had to dig it up and put it in italics there at the bottom. So really, it's about bringing groundwater up, putting it on the table, make sure it's actively considered in planning and management. So that was a key thrust that still features in the spirit of the current objective, even if it's not there in text. Yeah, okay, and then what is this project about? How is the structure? So there's, as it says in the upper right corner, there's 3 scales, 4 years, 5 components. So 3 scales, so we like to think we're focusing at the Pan-Africa level, which really helped us, or drove us to foster a strong partnership with the African Ministers' Council on Water. We're also engaging at the regional scale, which is engaging with regional economic communities and centers of excellence in the 3 regions of Africa, or potentially 4 as well. And then there's also, at a more localized scale, there's pilots or case studies to try to demonstrate on-the-ground benefits. So 3 scales, it's 4 years. In principle, though not practice, the project began August 1st of this month, so almost a month ago now. In practice, it'll likely begin next month when the contractual paperwork is finalized. So it began a month ago. It spans 4 years, so it's envisioned to go until July of 2028. And then there's 5 components, which are shown on the right of your screen. So there's one component that's centered around strategic planning, basically elevating the role of groundwater in planning in Africa. And again, that's largely at a regional level, and that will be led by AMCAL, the African Ministers' Council on Water. There's a second component, which is the one just right of the strategic planning there, centered around evidence and capacity development. IASA, who you just met Barbara from, and her colleague Tahir Kahil will lead that component. And I'll dive into these in more detail in a minute. I'll just give an overview. Third component is around demonstrating benefit. As I said, these case studies, and you see 2 pins on there on the map. Those are 2 of the 3. We added a third one in West Africa in the Mono Basin Kita Aquifer, but you'll note there's one in Uganda and then one in the Shire. That's number 3. The fourth one is around youth and youth empowerment and youth forums and youth networks to ensure youth are integrated in this, and the progress we made by the project team, who are often in their mid-career, continues beyond us, so that we hope the progress we made is kind of appreciated by the young generation and they take this forward after. The last component is 505, is centered around knowledge management and monitoring and evaluation. Drilling into these things, I'll try to be a little bit conscious of time. Oh boy. Yeah, okay. The first component, as I said, was centered around strategic planning led by AMCAL. Diving in there, what if we try to unpack that a bit? We'll sustain the groundwater function of AMCAL so that they can continue to build on some work they'd begun in the last few years and then continue this through and after the project. Hopefully this will strengthen linkage with the regional economic communities as well. And there's a lot of emphasis here on continent-wide dialogue, which includes the upcoming Africa Water Week in a couple months. Africa Water Week, that's right, in Cairo, and other stakeholder interaction to raise awareness. Again, this raising awareness is a common theme. Groundwater is overlooked. We need to keep raising that flag. And then we also are aiming to develop a framework to measure progress towards incorporating groundwater into planning. So it's easy to shoot straight ahead and say, okay, we need to get groundwater in planning, we're not including it anywhere. Well, maybe that's not true. If we do a rigorous process and try to gauge, assess currently, linking with other AMCOW initiatives that are already do monitoring and evaluation on the continent, maybe we'll capture some examples where groundwater is actively considered and we can learn from those. And equally, we can measure the extent to which groundwater is incorporating into planning and management going forward. So another activities around developing this framework and applying it as well to gauge how much groundwater is considered in planning at a national level in river basins. And then lesson learning, as I just said, from that, where maybe there's nice examples where groundwater is actively considered already, and maybe those are the best ways to foster greater appreciation for groundwater in other basins or other countries. And then from this to develop some guidelines on incorporating groundwater, keeping it moving. Second component, as I said earlier, is led by our colleagues at IASA. A lot of this is capacitation and evidence generation. So aligning with Barbara's presentation to just preceding me, assessing risks and opportunities associated with groundwater. What are risks, as it shows there in the sub-bullet? Risks are there areas of over-depletion? And although the general message, as I just said, is lots of opportunity, no doubt there's localized examples of potential over-depletion. So it's good to identify those. Water stress, equally, we can't forget the quality I mentioned, potential water quality impacts, adverse ones, and ecosystem degradation. So capture the risks, and then also capture the opportunity in terms of potential additional water available for irrigation and drinking water supply. They'll draw on a lot of the latest data products, Earth observation technologies, et cetera, and also kind of package it in nice user-friendly visualization tools so that we can foster uptake. They also have a set of trainings that they're going to implement around data processing, groundwater data processing, data collection, GIS, and groundwater monitoring. And I think Guillermo is going to implement the one on groundwater monitoring, building off the work he made reference to, I think, in his portion of the preceding presentation. Third component, as I said earlier, was around demonstrating, demonstrating benefit. A range of pilots. I said there are 3 earlier. One is in the Shire, the other one is in Uganda. A third, as it shows there in the top of the screen, is in the Mono Basin Kita aquifer. And then we derived a lot of activities in conjunction with stakeholders in these areas, and some of those stakeholders are listed there in the box on the bottom of your screen. And examples of activities that we're going to undertake are shown there in that list of sub-bullets, from gender and water assessments, groundwater monitoring networks, well rehabilitation, and other things. Fourth component it will be this youth forum. Oh, sorry, no, this is still the third component. Sorry. Third component, also static GMI is going to learn a really key activity of cross-learning across our set of 3 case studies. I'll stop there. I'm not going to go into detail. Hopefully this is put online. Fourth component is this youth forum. So again, engaging youth and giving them entry points to groundwater is key. That's directly in the project, but then also beyond. So that we're going to develop a platform so that they can learn and interact with professionals and basically take forward and put forward their voice in decision-making process, a website as well. Gender and social inclusion is going to cross-cut what we do. Across all the project, including our case studies, one of the initial activities is a gender and water assessment. So we know how to incorporate gender and kind of incorporate it into the thinking throughout the project in the activities in the particular case studies. Yeah, I wanted to highlight the long process, which was very beneficial. Just to give you guys a quick flavor, this started good 2.5 years ago in 2022, fifth stage. Full year of 23 was PPG stage, which was excellent to kind of expand our network. And one thing I'll say, I didn't mention the monetary value of this project, and I'm not going to. But if you look at the last bullet, one thing we're quite proud of is that we had a 7-to-1 co-finance ratio. I think that's actually conservative. We actually exceeded that. So the resources in this project were matched 7-fold and then some by a range of other actors. So we hope to really harness that for the help for the benefit of Africa. There's some key outputs here, which largely flow from some of the points I've made previously. I'm not going to dwell on them. As I said, I hope this presentation is put online. But last slide, I will take a minute to dwell on. And that's to say, a key purpose of us carving out this session in Stockholm was to make everybody know that we're doing this key activity. And we've already started and launched a set of key partnerships and collaboration in the course of the project development. You see a couple names listed there, ICRAC, IAEA, or a few others that we envision collaboration with. It doesn't need to stop there. We want to put ourselves on the radar screen. If you guys want to work with us, I was anticipating we might not have time for questions, so I did put some key email addresses there, including mine, a set of the other key staff involved in this, inside and outside EMI. Joanna Fatch from AMCAO, for example, who's on the call but not physically here to a visa issue. You're welcome to follow up with us. We're quite happy to engage and broaden the partnership base that we're currently working with. So with that, I'll thank you very much, and I think I've already helped you transition to the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Wonderful introduction to this new project. Good luck with the implementation. I'll keep this slide up so you can have a look and maybe take a photo of those emails. And as Jonathan says, please follow up with the team to see if there are avenues for engagement, or if you have questions or comments about today's presentations. Now, I would like to introduce Maha Ismail from the Nile Basin Initiative, a geologist, hydrogeologist with more than 20 years experience, and she will introduce the panelists, which will be active in our second part of this session. Maha, please, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to call upon my participants for this channel. Mr. James Samuramba, Dr. Muhammad, and Ricardo and Christina will be online. You are most welcome. Thank you. You can use the microphone. Thank you. So from the presentation, I welcome Christina and Ricardo online. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Christina. Hi, Ricardo. How is Gurani?
Hi.
Still underwater?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So as we've been listening to the previous presentations, most of the work was around capacity building, capacity enhancement of institutions to take over the management of natural resources, groundwater resources on a sustainable matter. Also, innovation is a key point. And then we heard about water security, we heard about food security, information sharing. And to carry that further, I would like to ask my panelists here on the key achievements that were delivered during your work under the projects that you are undertaking, and the main contributing factors. We start with James, please.
Thank you for that opportunity to contribute. So from SADC GMI, let me just repeat this, that we are a center of excellence for groundwater development and management in the SADC region. Our key success factors in what we have done to date is the creation of an enabling environment in the context of policies, legislation, and institutional setups. This is actually very important to look at these pillars in an integrated way. And this is at local, at national, at transboundary, and at regional level. We have a four-pronged approach to achieve this. So we use the 4 I's in our case. So it's institutions. We target the institutions at the different levels, at national, at transboundary, and at regional level. So at local level, we look at, at national level, we look at what we call the establishment of national focal groups that are champions of promoting our work in the country. At transboundary level, we look at river basin organizations as one structure, and the multi-country cooperation mechanisms at transboundary aquifer level. We also look at regional level. We have ourselves in collaboration with other regional partners. So on information, we are very much on data collection and its management all the way to generate knowledge that is used for decision making. We also have instruments. Instruments are such as policies or frameworks to support the integrated management of groundwater resources. And in this instance, we developed a SADC framework on data collection and management as one instrument that is very important to harmonize the way we manage the resource. And then, of course, the 4th I is infrastructure. We need infrastructure either to make use to access the resource, or infrastructure to monitor the resource and ensure that it is sustainably managed. So SADC is one region which is endowed with very strong policy frameworks which are yearning for implementation. And we are at that stage where we are also providing the support to all the institutions in the region to implement these instruments and ensure that groundwater is managed in conjunction with surface water, because we have very strong institutions that manage surface water. So those are our elements of success as an institute.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Christina, you know, data remains data unless it is shared, unless it is disseminated, and then it becomes information, and then it becomes useful. Tell us about the achievements on how dissemination of data has created difference. I welcome Christina. Christina.
Constantina, yeah.
Constantina. Constantina, sorry, very sorry.
Yes.
You look like my friend. Her name is Christina.
Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. I'm here to speak in my capacity as Jeff IW Learn Coordinator and bring some examples from the Jeff International Waters portfolio. So when it comes to knowledge management and the way that we share, all this information and all this data that comes that is generated through our projects, the Jeff International Waters has its own function, the IW Learn, which is the Learning Exchange Knowledge Network. And we have a hub that is dedicated to conjunctive management of groundwater and surface waters. And there we have all the lessons and the learnings from the Jeff International Waters projects. There are dedicated resources. There are online courses that you can that are accessible to all, and you can browse through them and you can participate in our courses. And of course, all the knowledge that is generated from our projects eventually targets this, is publicly available through IW Learn. And of course, it is a big portfolio. And we have several projects across the world, the ones that you already mentioned, for example, SADC GMI or Ricardo coming up with the Guarani. They all belong to the Jeff International Waters portfolio. And our role as Jeff IW Learn is to support, this dissemination of knowledge and to collect all these learnings and to produce, knowledge products that are available and can help replicate good practices. And of course, address all the challenges that are being faced in these aquifer groundwater projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Santina, thank you. Lamin, you are right now implementing also a GEF project on the groundwater department. Tell us about the main features and the main success areas of the project that you are implementing right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, happy to share with you. Actually, we are implementing, let's say, 2 projects. It's a GEF project. I will be firstly talk about the Senegal-Mauritania aquifer system just launched 1 month ago, which is implemented in the framework of the regional working group established and mandated by the 4 ministers to mobilize finance and improve the knowledge of this aquifer, which is shared by Senegal, Mauritania, Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau. So it is knowledge improvement, TDA, SAP, and then put in place a framework of cooperation or enhance the existing framework of cooperation. And the other one is just will be ending in June 2025. It is the Illumindan Taudnia aquifer system with the Niger Basin River. So it is conjunctive management, improving the knowledge of the Illumindan aquifer system with its relation with the Niger Basin River. So in this one, we also improved the knowledge, putting in place a regional database, a shared regional database, then also information system, conducted transboundary analysis, diagnosis studies, and then we are going now to the sub formulation. It's regional workshop will be held 1 month here let's say in November, and then from that we go to the strategic action plan, then investment plan. So this is actually an ongoing project. It's GEF financed project, and this SAP will be just endorsed by the ministers. The plan is just to hold the ministerial meeting in March 2025, and then also organize roundtable donor roundtable to finance this strategic action plan and the investment plan.
Thank you very much. Ricardo, tell us about the Gurani. It's a big success, Gurani. 4 countries
Okay.
coming together in managing groundwater. Tell us about the achievements. What are the factors that makes this Gurani a successful story?
Okay, thank you very much, Maha. In fact, we are finalizing the project till December, but we got a lot of results now to share. So thank you for the opportunity. The Guarani aquifer is a very big aquifer. It's more than 1,100,000 square kilometers. So, and it's shared by Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So we had 3 components to develop the process, and I will share a little bit of this contribution factors that for success, for a success. Well, the first one, the first component is to consolidate the transboundary technical cooperation. So we had to do this by technical committees. So we have 2 technical committees, one monitoring and modeling, and another for communication, capacity building. The first one, and the first strategy that we used is to develop the activities of the project and guarantee the engagement of the countries in the process. So we developed the monitoring network, considering 35 wells. So we had to understood what the countries needed for developing this monitoring network and to share the data. So it was a big discussion. We defined it. We shared information. We developed workshops to exchange information and exchange good practice on monitoring. Sorry, Maha?
It took you how many years?
No, it's a two-year project.
Very good.
Yeah, it's a very quick project, and there's an important issue here. The Guarani aquifer has an agreement for its management, regional protection and sustainable development between the 4 countries. And the agreement wasn't in force because it was missing one promulgation of Brazilian government. So the project started this movement with the steering committee, with the diplomacy of the countries, and this movement generated the president of Brazil promulgated the agreement in January 2024 this year. And it took force this year. So the project made a very important movement for this transboundary institutionalization, let's say, cooperation process. So also, I would point out that we had a very interesting, we are updating the strategic action plan, the SAP, because the SAP was developed in the first project of the Guarani, that it was in 2003 to 2009, and in 2009 it was presented, this SAP, but the institutional realities were very different than we find today. So we are updating it with gender perspective, climate change, and ecosystem services, and also trying to engage with the country's regulations, laws, policies, and projects. So we have to connect the SAP to the needs and interests of the countries. So it's very important that the project develops reciprocity from the regional perspective with the national, subnational, and local perspective of groundwater management.
And political will is available also. So all this work was enforced because of the available political will of the 4 countries. Yeah, that is very good. Transboundary cooperation. Lamin, now for the G4, you're going to work with FAO, AMCAO, IIS, IMWI. How can you coordinate all this together? Isn't it going to be difficult? Like, even if you are working with one development partner, it is difficult to report, to coordinate, to consult. So how are you going to do this?
For that project, you see, we may share some lesson learned in implementing transboundary project in Northern Africa, Western Africa, with the Northwestern Sahara aquifer system, with the Illumindan aquifer system I told about, and also with Illumindan Taudnitanes Rooft on Senegal and Mauritania. And just to facilitate, to coordinate, maybe I can share 6 points. Just maybe let me. It's you, and all of them are very important, really, to tackle these issues. The first of them is the importance of institutionalized cooperation and legal framework. It's really very important to deal with this kind of transboundary project, and then also sharing resources and guarantee their sustainability. And the second one is the role of data and information sharing. And this is very important to collect data, put in place a fundamental coordinated management of the aquifer, then have information system, regional database, which field maybe the models, and also paving the way for good cooperation. And then the third one is also the technical and financial commitment is very important. It's at the end of the project, activities does not have to stop. So the countries may be committed and then financing the activities and also monitoring and updating the different tools developed in the framework of the project. And the need for integrated approach, very important to deal with transboundary, surface water, integrated approach. So it has to be conjunctive management in those aquifer when we have the two components of the resources and also then consider the whole water cycle. And capacity building, very important in this kind of project also, is to have to develop those skills and then ensure sustainable and autonomous management of the shared aquifer. I mean, if you build those skills, then at the end of the project, the countries can manage their own the water resources and then also deal of the management of the different tools developed. And the last one is adaptation to climate change. And so considering the impact of climate change, so we can develop flexible and very resilient adaptation strategies. So this is a lesson learned from our experience in implementing this transboundary project.
Thank you very much. Konstantin, I hope this time I'm pronouncing your name in a correct manner. So, how can visible, shared success stories contribute to a better transboundary cooperation? How can it enhances transboundary cooperation?
Thank you for this question. It's a very interesting question. We've been discussing transboundary. It is the year of transboundary cooperation and peace, and it's always the role of all the factors and the actors, the role that they are all playing, from governance, from putting together, the right frameworks, all kinds of frameworks that are necessary in order to, and policy frameworks, regulatory frameworks, and of course, trying to get, the countries, to agree, most importantly, on a common vision, on a joint vision, and then to transform this, to a real action, to tangible action. And of course, it's both the technical work that is being done, and again, from the GEF International Waters portfolio, we have great examples already mentioned here, that the projects that are have already been mentioned, they come from the GEF portfolio. And we see, the value of exchanging, the value of sharing this knowledge, and of learning from each other. We see that our meetings, like the International Waters Conference coming up, they play a key role because we bring together not only the project people, but also the country counterparts that play a role, into building this cooperation, and understanding that building cooperation, does not, it goes well beyond, the management of water resources themselves, but has a real impact, on environment, has a real impact on economy. It has a socioeconomic impact. It helps adapt, to climate change. So for us, this holistic approach, that starts with governance, that is complemented, with sound science, that is translated, to policy, that we test it through technical solutions and pilot projects. And of course, we have the component of capacity development and knowledge exchange. I think by looking at these and by combining all these, then we can have successful examples like the ones that have already been discussed, and many more that you can find also in our website of GEF-IW Learn, that showcase, in each of these different environments, because all the cases here, apart from the Guarani, come from from Africa, Guarani is a Latin America project, but we have even, in other cases, like in the Pacific or in bigger regions like Southeastern Asia, the Mekong Delta aquifer, that have a different impact. So learning and sharing from us is one key message, that really helps improve by seeing the successful examples of others, by learning from others, by being inspired, by the way that they do things. So we invite you, to learn and to join us, in our efforts, and of course in the groundwater management hub that we have in our website, in our portal, and of course share your learnings. It's very important, to learn from the others and be inspired, not only from their successes, but also by what has not worked. Failures, usually teach us more than successes.
Yes, you're right. You're quite right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Constantine. Ricardo, in Guarani, just like in Africa, most of the sites where we are working is located far away from the capitals. And usually we fight and we struggle to convince local governments on proving our technical work and so on. Do you think empowering the local groundwater institutions or water resources institutions actively contributes to transboundary institutional setup in general?
Yeah, Maha, for sure. In fact, it's very important to connect the local needs and interests and the subnational needs and interests and national to the regional ones. So it's very complex work. It's a planning work also to understand all the needs and interests and context and to integrate it in a plan. So we made two main activities connecting to this proposal. First, we made some workshops with groundwater management institutions from all the countries. In case of Brazil and Argentina, as its groundwater management is subnational, we made workshop with the subnational institutions. So we started mapping the institutions of each country. We understood with the institutions in this workshop the policies, regulations, responsibilities, and priorities, actual priorities involving groundwater management. So it's very interesting, the work interesting because even the subnational states, they exchange between each other, and it's transboundary also because it's subnational management. They exchanged a lot between them, connecting to the regional perspective, and also updating the strategic action plan, considering the institutional workshops and surveys we did with them. So we made surveys also to understand their priorities. In another guideline, we made different stakeholders we made different national and international meetings with stakeholders, with, let's say, with governance of water and groundwater. So we connected to local, provincial, national government, scientific and technical community, indigenous peoples, users, basins committees, among others, stakeholders, and we made workshops, local, national workshops, and of course international, as I said, to discuss the present and the proposal for the future management of the Guarani. So how to improve the management and the realities and the knowledge and the information and the communication for the Guarani, and with the participants also we discussed capacity building and needs for them. So we have to understand the realities, understand the stakeholders, and connect it to our process.
Okay, more engagement, you mean? I'm running out of questions. I should thank my panelists I have 5 minutes for questions from the floor. Do we have a microphone? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Pelle Seman. I've been working in Africa, from South Africa up to Egypt for like 50 years or so in water resources, including groundwater. Now, there was a statement by Barbara that most of the groundwater is for rural people. That will change, of course, since the urbanization and the the people in Africa are very good to multiply. So, for example, Addis Ababa is more than 60% is groundwater. And AUSA, the Water and Sanitation Authority, is now conducting or hiring consultants to study the groundwater modeling and test pumping, etc. So that's rather a comment than a question. The other story is I'm Swedish, and the drilling technology used in Africa is usually mud drilling, which is not that good. We are now drilling in Morogoro with mud. It takes 3 months to drill 300 meters. We are very proud of Atlas Copco, who developed Odex drilling, which would do the job in a week. And I asked the Chinese guys who are drilling, why don't you use it? We heard about it, but we don't use it. That's the second comment. The third one is we were just discussing MAR. We're also proud that more than 50% of the Swedish cities have developed artificial recharge. And we are happy to teach the municipalities and cities how to use surface water to convert it into groundwater with a quality and quantity improvement. So that was not the question. All three were statements or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Barbara, please note that. Okay. Thank you. You are right, sir. In Khartoum, I come from Sudan. In Khartoum, we use conjunctive management. We use Nile water, 62%, and we use groundwater, 42, 43%, depending on the season. When it is flood season, we use more groundwater. When it is winter season, we use more surface water, Nile water, because of the treatment costs. Yes, please.
But do you use the Nile for artificial recharge, or you take it directly?
We use it. We use it after treatment of sediments only, not treatment of pathogens. Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Marta Faneca. I work at Deltares, a research institute in the Netherlands. First of all, thank you for all the presentations, really interesting. I was wondering for the project, G4DR.
Yeah.
Is the impact of climate change and socioeconomic developments also considered in it? And if so, how will it be integrated, for example, for the planning?
Okay, I think, James, you are most willing to answer this question. Okay. Jonathan. Yes. Jonathan, what about the socioeconomics?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I also had a couple of questions on to the panelists, but I think we're growing short on time. But yeah, no, in the context of the second component, if you remember, I laid out this 5-component framework. So the second component that's led by my colleague, represented by my colleague here, Barbara from IASA, they're looking into the future at climate change impacts and these socioeconomic development pathways to understand, how things will change going forward as well. So it's not just current risk, they're also looking forward into the future to look at how risks might change due to climate. So in terms of some of the mapping that they're going to do on, for example, vulnerability mapping, that'll consider vulnerability today, but then also vulnerability in the future. So the hope is that those things can feed into planning as well. So that's where that'll be housed. So If you want afterwards, you should talk with Barbara. Thanks.
Unless you mean the socioeconomic dynamics. Yeah, both. Okay. Okay. Benjamin kept on warning us that time is over. So one question, Benjamin, one last question. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Andrew Yunda Stephen from the Ministry of Water Resources, South Sudan. Yeah, mine is just a short question. First, I wanted to appreciate, the interest on developing the transboundary water aquifers in the country, and the fact that it has been made very clear that it's still a growing area, that it's coming. There are very few transboundary aquifers that have been studied, and this is very good that we are moving towards that direction. My question is, I see from the presentations that have been given now, it seems data sharing when it comes to groundwater management, it's really picking up very good. From the countries that we have had from SADC, from Senegal and also from Brazil, it seems it's working on very well. What can we learn from, the groundwater, transboundary water management with the surface water, that we can enhance, data sharing within the surface water, which I see is still very challenging. But I'm seeing that from the groundwater perspective, there's really a lot of interest in working together. And what are those drivers? This is something that I wanted to understand.
Maybe this goes to Konstantin.
Yep.
You are directing your question to Konstantina?
Okay,
Konstantina can start on answering it, then James. Yes, please. Konstantin, are you ready?
Unfortunately, yes, we don't have a good reception, so I didn't hear the question. We're online. I'm sorry,
The gentleman was asking about the data generated from the different projects. Sharing it will capacitate others, will improve the understanding of others. What's your comment on that?
It is always, this I think is a wider discussion about data sharing. It eventually depends on what the countries are willing to share and in which possible way. We very much welcome, open data sharing, so that it facilitates, and helps us improve water management practices. But eventually, it is the countries that they have to agree, into what data sharing and how. I think the global community is very much about sharing data openly, so that they can be utilized, for scientific purposes, and of course to improve water management.
Can I make a very quick comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in our case, we understood that it was a very delicate situation, because it's not, each country has its own way of sharing data and collecting data and informing the data to society. So it was a very delicate discussion between the countries, and we decided to start by a very simple instrument and very simple process of sharing, getting trust in the process, getting confidence in the process, and then planning a next step for a different method, a better system, and a shared system. So it depends on the realities and the interest, and it's very delicate.
James, you are a research institute. Data is your field.
Yes. So from the SADC region, we like groundwater, by virtue of its out of sight, out of mind nature, you need data to be able to understand it. So we started, I think all the way 2010, we had a hydrogeological map that was developed, and it was voluntary collection of data from the member states, because they were trying to unravel this secret, this resource that is out of sight. So since then, I think there's been a culture of trying to understand more how this resource works And this is actually extended to the transboundary aquifers. When you do the transboundary diagnostic analysis, the member states that are sharing a TBA have got an appetite to share data because they want to understand the system jointly. And then they move to the next stage. They are doing this strategic action planning. It is also a necessity that they share data and information to be able to plan together. So it's a tool that we utilize for data collection and management. And as SADC GMI ourselves, we have got this convening mandate and the neutral broker role where the member states feel relatively more comfortable to share their data. And we have what we call the SADC Groundwater Information Portal, the SADC GIP, where we collect data from the different member states and we actually avail it on NDA basis and other kind of roles. So
do you provide training?
Yes, we also provide training to the member states.
You need to talk to him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Benjamin, for keeping the time. I'm very bad in keeping time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So,
sorry.
Much appreciated. Yes, please.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, Constantina. Thank you.
Very, very much appreciated. Thank you very much, Maha, for a very good and lively moderation of our panel. I would like to ask you 5 minutes of patience for your time. So we have Astrid online from the Jeff Secretary. Oh, she's here. Sorry. Astrid, please give us your take on what happened in these sessions. What did you take away, and what can we learn for the future? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm on the line, not online. So this was an exciting session. We started off with a lot of facts and challenges for groundwater, right? So Africa's development has big ambitions. There's a 2063, the Africa we want. At the same time, that means like 10 times more water. We will have huge influx into the cities, and as Pele said, already there's larger groundwater dependence than we think on the cities, and pollution will creep up, and we have not talked enough about, I think, the water quality in the sessions, but I will. We will, with the rapid urbanization, of course, then also there's 10 times more water will come in a much more point drawdown, so to say, both from surface and groundwater. There you are. We have 106 transboundary aquifers, 106 in Africa. So we need to prioritize where to work on, and the countries need to see, and most of it is not known, what is in the aquifers and where they're flowing and where it's recharging. So there is a big need to really draw on what is existing, on the knowledge and of the centers. So I'm very excited about groundwater for resilience, advanced resilience. This was very smart how you renamed it, but I forgot it. But it was very smart to really work on a lean way. And we heard just from James, you have to have a convening role to get everybody together, and AMCAL provides that across Africa. But also G4DR is building on these centers that the countries really own and build up, and they're closer to the ground. Be it at SADC GMI, being at the OSS, and the IGAD is also building up that knowledge and having a regional center. And that is really strong because you're closer to your clients and the people understand more from these regional centers what around them, because, it's diverse, is needed. A few things, because we don't have that much time, I want to just summarize that came sort of across. Governance. Governance is the big thing not being sufficient on groundwater. And not only, yes, we need for shared aquifer resources, we need a legal institutional framework, and that actually needs to be actually used. We heard it from the Guarani. Okay, it was in beginning 2000, the agreement was signed, but then it's just recent that it came into force. While I'm at the Guarani, you need to update your action plans, you need to stay relevant, you need to update yourself. Unfortunately, also, it's like, where was the old action plan? It was not relevant, and it was all right, Ricardo, you better look into that. But institutionalized legal and regional frameworks is very good. But my mind is you also very much from the beginning need to work on the local and national levels. You cannot expect wonders from a regional cooperation, what people institutionalize and what they do together, if you don't know what is in the country, if you don't have capacities of countries knowing how to assess their resources, how to monitor them, and how to govern them. If there's no permitting and there's no governance and it's not clear who owns the groundwater, then you have a problem. If you have combined land and water rights for groundwater, you know, I buy a piece of land and therefore I can drill whatever. We need to look at that in different countries and strengthen and make that more transparent. So governance and institutionalization. Big theme, data and information sharing. In order to assess the resource, you need to first of all have the data. And if you look at the transboundary, you need to share it and you need to put it in a common framework and so forth. I can say why I think it's a little bit easier right now where we have so much more activity on groundwater. But anyway, integrated management. There was talk about conjunctive management. We have some good examples there from the OSS, you know, looking at the Niger Basin and then the ITAS and the system underneath. You didn't even mention how difficult that becomes for the legal institutional frameworks because the riparians of the surface water is not always the same ones that are actually on these different groundwater aquifers, groundwater basins that are underneath. So that is something to work out. Plus, this integration needs to also include dialogue with the other sectors, because who's the biggest users is people, but it's also agriculture and so forth. So working on local and national and regional scales to get other sectors of the major users in there. Capacity building, we talked about that needs to happen on all levels, and also to capacitate that local level to you have water user associations or something that in the long run you have a sustainability of that governance. Because if you have just a regional framework and projects go away and so forth and you didn't capacitate your national and local levels, it's not going to continue. Adaptation to climate change. This is something that will come for everybody. Of course, groundwater storage, managed aquifer recharge, and so forth will help a great deal for having underground storage that doesn't evaporate so fast, doesn't react so quickly to droughts and so forth. Konstantina mentioned, which is very important in all cooperation processes, to come from the fact-finding to a common vision. What are opportunities to cooperate and what are we willing to cooperate on, and then building an institutional framework behind that. And then you can come to action, and then I will wrap up. Somebody mentioned indigenous people. I don't know who it was, but very important to be inclusive, you know, to not keep it there on this state level, but when you really manage to the ground to have indigenous people, to local communities, women, and only G4DR said also, let's work with the youth. Groundwater is something that if you replenish it now, it's going to go. It's an intergenerational impact that you see. Make it relevant, Guarani, make it relevant to people, talk to people. That's also the inclusiveness. You know, don't make it all the technical people talking about the drawdown curve and the and hydrologists are terrible to communicate. Make it relevant for people. What do I get out of it? What does it mean? And do action plans and actions that get felt and has benefits on the ground. We talked about the convening power. I'm very excited of seeing this going. I'm very excited for these centers to connect and hope you are. And I think that brings me to the end, and thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Astrid, for this very lively and very succinct and great summary of what we have and talk about it. I think that's a good way forward. Please talk to the people, talk to the speakers, the panelists. Get in touch through email, engage, and good luck with the implementation of this new project. I would like to take one moment to thank very much our technical support staff, and you have done a wonderful job of this session. Thank you very much for for your great questions and your patience, and I look forward to seeing you in the next sessions. All the speakers and panelists, please come to the front, and we would like to do a little family photo before we stop. Thank you very much.
I'm sliding down to you. There's nothing I can do but wait as the water closes in.